I wanted to just finish off my coverage of the Tata Steel tournament by looking at another game by the winner, Jordan van Foreest. Because basically in the tournament, I really only considered one of his games right in the final round. So it seems fair to look at another of his games. And I really love this. It shows how important opening choice is, not just preparation, but which opening you choose. So this was from round 7. Van Foreest is black. Tari is playing white. So first of all, it's a Spanish, and bishop c5 is a little bit unusual. Castles, knight e7, all right, so this is a little bit strange. But, well, c3 looks normal. And bishop a7, okay, that preempts d4, which was played. Now previously, there had been a few games with taking on d4 and then d5. But Van Foreest played knight g6, just defending the pawn on e5. And clearly he prepared this. Now this is, to my eyes, a very strange system. Normally, that knight will come out to f6. It's very odd indeed. I think in modern chess, with so much use of computers, it is very hard to get some kind of decisive opening novelty. But what you can do is look at opening variations which have perhaps been neglected or not explored very much, and basically bring your opponent onto unfamiliar territory. And that's what Van Foreest has done here. So Tari thought for almost 8 minutes and played bishop g5, which looks very reasonable. It provokes f6, and normally that's not a terribly nice move because it opens up this diagonal. Castles. And here, well, again, Tari invested some time, obviously not very familiar with this position. Understandably, it looks really unusual to my eyes. And he played a move which looks very tempting, pawn to d5. One could just wait here, but then if this, then it's a very interesting position. Black is absolutely rock solid, holding e5, and you sort of waiting for white to commit, and then you're going to try to burst forward with f5. In any case, d5 played looks really inviting, considering that white is able to exchange on a7 and put this rook right out of play. Now talk about split rooks. Better on a8, of course, and on a7 they look so ugly. More than that, Tari played d6, and after this you can see that d pawn is nailed to the spot, means the bishop can't come out very easily. This diagonal is open. Frankly, I would feel delighted if I were playing with white in this position. But Van Foreest had obviously looked at this kind of position and realised this is actually playable for black incredibly. So first of all, he broke out with b5, a check here, so the king goes in the corner, and now a4. It feels so natural to open up the a file in typical Spanish fashion, just to have a nibble at that pawn on b5. But incredibly, black is all right here. Rook b7 is the start of a very unusual but very strong manoeuvre. Pawn takes pawn, and now rook b6, expelling the queen, and then a takes b5. Knight d2, white develops, and bishop b7. So actually, within the space of just a few moves, the position has transformed. This, I would say, is almost a dream position for black. It reminds me of a Sicilian. a kind of Najdorf, or well, any Sicilian where you get a backward d pawn like this, and here you're ready to expand with d5. It reminds me of a Kalashnikov or a Löwenthal, or a Sveshnikov, sometimes a Najdorf. Anyway, all these variations with a backward d pawn. And once you get in d5, then that will liberate this bishop. It'll liberate that knight. The rook is actually beautifully placed. Could swing across to d6. And the other break that's possible is f5. And then that rook can swing across to the f file. And again, once f5 comes, then that bishop just rakes across the board. And what can white do in the meantime? Not a lot, actually. That's the funny thing. So let's see what happens. c4, I think a very understandable move from Tari. He's desperate to try to create counterplay on the queen side as distracting black. And it does at least prevent d5. However, it doesn't stop f5. And now, for example, if c5, well, that rook swings across, the rooks have magically connected. And that looks pretty tasty in combination with the knight coming to f4 and the bishop. I mean, it's a wonderful position. So f5 just played. Bishop c2, bolstering the pawn on e4. But after this is already very awkward. That can't be recaptured because black wins a pawn. So knight g5, obviously looking to capture here. Knight f5, that knight comes into the game. The knight on g5 is attacked, takes in the middle, and now knight f4. Already you can see the bishop and the knight join forces and kind of intersect on the g2 pawn. Looks fantastic. And Mr. Rook ready to run across the board and to attack on the king side as well. It is a dream position. The queen waiting in the wings as well. Knight f3 played to prevent black's queen entering on h4 potentially. Pawn takes pawn on c4. Looks great. This pawn front is about to connect, and well, it's all going black's way. So knight takes e5, and now, well, material is level for the moment. Black has so many interesting moves here, but this is a great one. Now it starts to get quite spectacular. Knight d4. Wow, so uncomfortable for white. If that's taken, of course, there's a lovely knight fork on e2. Rook e1 played. Let's just have a quick look at f3, which kind of bolsters the knight on e4. In that case, well, black could move in for the kill with queen h4, and you can see, well, there are so many attacking ideas here, but the basic idea is if, well, white misses this, then we've got a nice mate on the h-file. The knight controls those squares. Anastasia's mate, I seem to recall from my beginner's days. Let's go back. So yeah, those are the kind of possibilities available. So rook e1 prevents knight e2 check. Nevertheless, black is in control here. So that bishop exchanged, and now simple move, rook e6. Lining up against those knights, it looks really unpleasant. It is very unpleasant. Basically, white is already lost in this position. If knight c4, then, in fact, well, there are so many good moves here. Rook g6 is strong, hitting this. And after this, d5, well, you can see this is just winning material. It looks horrendous. Every single one of black's pieces contributing. So anyway, rook e6 just played, queen c3, queen e7, and now this is absolutely disastrous. Rook a5. Basically, if that knight moves, then of course the knight on e4 drops. d6. Okay, very simple. Knight g5, rook takes knight. Thank you very much. That's now an extra piece. So obviously white is lost here, but still, let's see how the game finishes. Queen c2. Threatening a mate, but after knight d3, Tari resigned. Yeah, well, I think that's kind of understandable. White is, after all, a piece down, and there's more to come. The rook is threatened. F2 is vulnerable. Okay, let's just see what happens if the rook switches across here. Be careful not to play knight takes f2 because that's mate. But, well, with the rook sort of halfway up the board, rook e8 is pretty good. Threatening a lethal check here. Let me just go to mate. This is one possible variation. Queen f4 and rook h1 mate. That didn't happen. However, white really is hopelessly lost in this position. So yeah, absolutely beautiful game by Jordan van Foreest. And he did fantastically well. He's only 21 years old. It's the first time that a Dutchman has won in Vacanzee since 1985, when that was Jan Timman, the legendary Jan Timman, who won. But yeah, I hope that he manages to progress in the chess world as well, because you know he seems like a very nice guy, and yeah, his success was thoroughly deserved. Thanks for watching.